The research vessel Glartok hovered in orbit above Earth. Its crew gathered around a containment unit holding their latest acquisition. The crew stared at the small, furry creature inside, tension heavy in the air. It blinked lazily at them, completely at ease. "It's so small," one alien whispered in disbelief. Another, reviewing the data, clicked nervously. Preliminary reports state it's capable of ambush hunting, with retractable claws sharper than plasma blades. This creature could dispatch prey in seconds. Captain Zalk's eyes narrowed. Ambush hunting? It strikes without warning? This makes it more dangerous than we ever imagined. The specimen yawned, stretching its legs out lazily before curling back into a relaxed ball. The aliens exchanged glances, their whispers becoming frantic. "It's so calm, too calm. Only apex predators display such lack of fear." Zalk kept his distance, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Be on guard. If it attacks, it may be unstoppable." The aliens continued their tests, scanning the animal's muscles and reflexes. One scientist marveled at its slow, steady heart rate, interpreting it as a sign of the creature's immense self-control. "This predator is unlike anything we've seen. It doesn't show any stress," another alien whispered, voice quivering. And then, the moment they feared arrived. The creature rolled onto its back, exposing its soft belly. Gasps filled the room. "It's showing its vulnerable underside." "No creature would reveal such a weakness unless it doesn't need to fear us at all." Captain Zalk's voice dropped to a whisper. "Or it's setting a trap." Chaos erupted as the crew scrambled back, tripping over one another in their haste to hide behind consoles and lab equipment. "No sudden movements," a scientist hissed. "It could ambush at any moment." The furry creature began to purr, a strange rumbling sound that seemed to reverberate through the walls. The aliens froze. What does that noise mean?" "It's a warning," someone muttered, their eyes wide with terror. Captain Zalk tightened his grip on the containment unit's edge. "We need expertise, someone who has dealt with these predators before. Summon the human." A message was sent, and soon, the door to the lab slid open with a quiet hiss. A human engineer, wearing grease-stained coveralls and holding a half-empty coffee cup, strolled in. The crew turned to face him, their fear evident in their wide eyes and trembling limbs. The human glanced at the containment pod, looked back at the crew, and chuckled. "That's just a house cat." The aliens stared, their confusion palpable. House cat?" "Yeah," the human said casually. The research vessel Glartok hovered in orbit above Earth. Its crew gathered around a containment unit holding their latest acquisition. The crew stared at the small, furry creature inside, tension heavy in the air. It blinked lazily at them, completely at ease. "It's so small," one alien whispered in disbelief. Another, reviewing the data, clicked nervously. Preliminary reports state it's capable of ambush hunting, with retractable claws sharper than plasma blades. This creature could dispatch prey in seconds. Captain Zalk's eyes narrowed. "Ambush hunting? It strikes without warning? This makes it more dangerous than we ever imagined." The specimen yawned, stretching its legs out lazily before curling back into a relaxed ball. The aliens exchanged glances, their whispers becoming frantic. "It's so calm, too calm. Only apex predators display such lack of fear." Zalk kept his distance, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Be on guard. If it attacks, it may be unstoppable." The aliens continued their tests, scanning the animal's muscles and reflexes. One scientist marveled at its slow, steady heart rate, interpreting it as a sign of the creature's immense self-control. "This predator is unlike anything we've seen. It doesn't show any stress," another alien whispered, voice quivering. And then, the moment they feared arrived. The creature rolled onto its back, exposing its soft belly. Gasps filled the room. "It's showing its vulnerable underside." "No creature would reveal such a weakness unless it doesn't need to fear us at all." Captain Zalk's voice dropped to a whisper. "Or it's setting a trap." Chaos erupted as the crew scrambled back, tripping over one another in their haste to hide behind consoles and lab equipment. "No sudden movements," a scientist hissed. "It could ambush at any moment." The furry creature began to purr, a strange rumbling sound that seemed to reverberate through the walls. The aliens froze. What does that noise mean? It's a warning, someone muttered, their eyes wide with terror. Captain Zalk tightened his grip on the containment unit's edge. We need expertise, someone who has dealt with these predators before. Summon the human. A message was sent, and soon, the door to the lab slid open with a quiet hiss. A human engineer, wearing grease-stained coveralls and holding a half-empty coffee cup, strolled in. The crew turned to face him, their fear evident in their wide eyes and trembling limbs. The human glanced at the containment pod, looked back at the crew, and chuckled. That's just a house cat. The aliens stared, their confusion palpable. House cat? Yeah, the human said casually, taking a sip of coffee. People keep them as pets. They're pretty harmless. The crew exchanged bewildered glances. One alien finally asked, Then why does it purr? The human laughed. It's happy. Purring means it likes you. The aliens were stunned. Zalk stammered. But it rolled onto its back. Isn't that an attack posture? Nah, the human said, setting down his coffee. That means it wants a belly rub. A belly rub? Zalk repeated, as if the concept were incomprehensible. The human grinned. Watch. Before the aliens could stop him, the human opened the containment pod. The crew gasped in horror as the cat stepped out and meowed softly. The human crouched down and scratched the cat's belly. The apex predator wriggled happily under his touch, purring even louder. The aliens could only watch in disbelief. The aliens stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Captain Zalk stared at the human, his mandibles clicking in confusion. You're petting it? Zalk's voice trembled. The human grinned without concern. Yeah, belly rubs are the way to this little guy's heart. Just don't stop halfway, or you might get a swat. The crew flinched as the cat playfully batted at the human's hand, claws barely extended. A ripple of panic ran through them. It attacked, one alien shouted, diving behind a console. The human rolled his eyes. That's not an attack. That's just the cat telling me I'm slacking. Captain Zalk tried to regain his composure, but the confusion only deepened. You mean to tell me this predator allows itself to be handled? It lives alongside your kind without incident. The human shrugged. Yeah, cats are everywhere. They're part of the family. The aliens exchanged horrified looks, trying to reconcile the idea of living with such a volatile creature. Zalk shook his head in disbelief. And they show no fear toward humans? Do they obey your commands? The human chuckled. Not even a little. Zalk's eyes narrowed. Then how do you control them? We don't, the human said with a smirk. Cats do whatever they want. We're more like their staff. The alien stared in stunned silence. You serve this creature? The human laughed. Yeah, you could say that. We feed them, clean up after them, and give them attention whenever they feel like it. The tension in the room shifted from fear to bewilderment. Zalk rubbed his temples, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what he was hearing. And you call this a pet? Yep, the human replied cheerfully. They're really good at keeping us humble. The cat leapt up onto a nearby console, its tail flicking lazily. The alien scattered in panic, convinced the creature was about to strike. Instead, it settled into a loaf shape, watching them with lazy indifference. One alien whispered in disbelief, It's studying us. Another shuddered. It's waiting for the right moment to pounce. The human smirked, taking another sip of coffee. Nah, it just wants to know if you're going to give it treats. Captain Zalk, overwhelmed, finally spoke. This is madness. How can creatures from such a dangerous world coexist with something this unpredictable? The human gave the cat a quick scratch behind the ears. We've just learned to live with the chaos. Zalk sat down heavily, his mind reeling. Your species truly is incomprehensible. The human smiled. Thanks, we get that a lot. The aliens remained silent, each grappling with their existential crisis. If humans could live side by side with creatures as unpredictable as these cats, what else were they capable of? Captain Zalk stared at the feline, now napping soundly on the console as if it had conquered the entire research vessel. A new wave of fear crept through his mind. If this creature behaves like this, how do you manage to survive the other predators of your planet? The human gave a nonchalant shrug. We don't survive despite the chaos. We survive because of it. One of the aliens leaned in cautiously, eyeing the cat. Your entire species is at ease with these unpredictable creatures? You willingly invite them into your homes?" The human grinned. "Oh yeah, and it's not just cats. We have dogs, snakes, birds, some folks even keep spiders as pets." The room erupted in gasps. "Spiders!" one alien whispered in abject horror. Another alien clutched his datapad tightly, looking queasy. "But spiders are venomous predators." The human chuckled. "Not all of them. Most of them are harmless." He paused for dramatic effect. "Well, mostly harmless." Zalk was struggling to keep himself composed. "And you live alongside these creatures voluntarily?" "Yep," the human said cheerfully. "We even let some of them sleep on our beds." Zalk's tentacles twitched, betraying his inner turmoil. "Your entire society, it embraces danger willingly." The human tilted his head thoughtfully. "Danger? Nah, we just like to have company. Life's more fun that way." The aliens exchanged glances, stunned beyond words. Suddenly the cat stirred from its nap, stretching languidly before hopping down from the console. The aliens tensed, ready to flee at the first sign of aggression. Instead, the cat let out a soft meow, brushing affectionately against the human's leg. "See?" the human said, smiling. "It just wants attention. Maybe some food, too." The aliens remained rigid, unable to comprehend how a species could live with such constant unpredictability. One alien finally asked, "How do you know when it will attack?" The human gave a sly grin. "You don't, that's part of the fun." The crew collectively shuddered. Zalk took a deep breath, trying to regain control of the situation. "So you're telling me that humans, creatures from a death world, willingly surround themselves with unpredictable, predatory animals for fun?" The human gave a satisfied nod. "Yep, and if you think that's strange, wait till you hear about toddlers." Zalk blinked. "What's a toddler?" The human smirked. "Imagine something about as unpredictable as a cat, but with opposable thumbs and a lot more energy." Zalk slumped back into his chair, defeated. I need to sit down." The human chuckled. "Take your time, it's a lot to process." The cat, now bored with the conversation, trotted toward the door and meowed again. The human smiled. "Looks like someone's ready to leave." He opened the door, and the cat padded out into the hallway as if it owned the ship. Zalk watched the creature disappear down the corridor, still grappling with everything he had learned. "Your species truly makes no sense." The human clapped him on the back. "Welcome to life with humans, Captain. If this is what you consider normal, I fear what you would call chaotic." The human laughed. "Oh, you have no idea." Zalk sat in silence for a moment, his mind racing. Then he glanced toward the door where the cat had exited. What happens if it gets loose on the ship?" The human smirked. "Well, you might lose a few snacks, and it'll probably knock over anything that looks important. Other than that, you'll be fine." Zalk muttered quietly, almost to himself. "We are not prepared for this." The human stretched and finished the last sip of his coffee. "Don't worry, Captain. If it causes any trouble, just give me a shout. I've got more coffee and a laser pointer. It's practically a magic wand for cats." Zalk could only shake his head, finally understanding the truth. Humanity didn't survive through strength or power alone. They survived because they thrived in chaos and made friends with it along the way. The tension that had gripped the room slowly began to dissolve, replaced by a strange, unsettling calm. The alien crew watched in silence, trying to wrap their minds around the absurdity of everything they had just learned. Zalk finally stood, smoothing his uniform. "So, you're saying that this unpredictable predator, this cat, is just part of your everyday life?" The human gave a lazy grin. "Pretty much. They do their thing and we do ours. You just learn to coexist. It's not about control, it's about mutual respect. Well, as much as a cat will respect anyone." One alien muttered quietly, "This defies every safety protocol in our handbook." The human snorted. "Yeah, safety protocols don't mean much to a cat. You think it cares about your rules? It'll sit on whatever it wants. Laptops, important documents, ancient artifacts, you name it." Zalk's shoulders sagged under the weight of this revelation. "How do you even function as a society with creatures like this running unchecked?" The human leaned back, grinning. "That's the trick. We don't always function smoothly, but we make it work anyway. Improvisation, Captain. That's the human way." Zalk rubbed his forehead in frustration. "Improvisation, with apex predators in your homes. Exactly, the human said cheerfully. And the best part? We love them for it. Another alien, still in shock, whispered, "They're insane." Zalk sighed deeply. I thought I had seen everything, creatures of fire, beings made of pure energy, and now a species that voluntarily shares its habitat with these cats. He paused. And thrives. The human gave a satisfied nod. Yep, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Suddenly the cat returned, strutting back into the room. The aliens flinched in unison. Zalk stared at the mess, slack-jawed. It's not even sorry. Nope, the human chuckled. It never is. The cat gave a flick of its tail and curled up on the console again, purring contentedly. Zalk let out a long, defeated breath. We need to rewrite our survival manuals. One of the alien scientists nodded solemnly. And include a section on cats. Zalk turned toward the human with an exhausted look. Is there any other advice you can offer us before we try to integrate this new knowledge? The human smiled mischievously. Just one thing. If it starts kneading you with its paws, you've been chosen. Congratulations. Your ship now belongs to the cat. The aliens exchanged horrified glances, realizing that they had underestimated humanity in every possible way. Not only did humans survive in chaos, they embraced it, even welcomed it into their lives with open arms. Zalk sighed again. You humans are truly something else. The human raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. We try. Just as the aliens thought they had reached the limits of their understanding, the human checked his wrist communicator and frowned. Oh, by the way, if you ever meet a toddler, good luck. Zalk shook his head slowly, feeling a new kind of fear creeping in. I don't think I want to know, the human laughed. You really, really don't. The aliens watched in silence as the cat dozed off again, completely unbothered by the strange beings around it. The human gave the cat a final pat and turned to leave, whistling a cheerful tune as he headed out the door. Zalk and his crew stood motionless, processing everything they had learned in the past hour. Finally, the captain spoke, his voice low and filled with reluctant admiration. Contact the council. Tell them that humans are more dangerous than we thought. One alien scientist hesitated. Because of their pets? Zalk shook his head. No, because they've learned to survive alongside them. With a deep sigh, Zalk looked at the cat one last time and muttered under his breath, How do they even survive? The cat twitched an ear but didn't bother opening its eyes. And with that, the aliens knew. They would never fully understand humans. And perhaps that was for the best. The days that followed were marked by quiet adjustments aboard the research vessel. Captain Zalk insisted on revising every survival protocol, adding new chapters titled Dealing with Human Pets, Recognizing Dangerous Human Behavior, and begrudgingly, How to Handle a Cat Without Losing Your Sanity. Every alien on board now walked with careful precision, making sure not to cross paths with the cat. Whenever the feline wandered into a room, conversations halted, and every piece of equipment was swiftly secured to avoid becoming a casualty of the cat's whims. Despite their best efforts, the cat still found ways to wreak havoc, curling up on control panels, knocking important documents to the floor, and chasing stray cables as if they were prey. At first, the crew treated these incidents as catastrophic, scrambling to regain control of their systems. But slowly, very slowly, something strange began to happen. One day, Zalk found himself sitting at a console, the cat purring contentedly on his lap. He had no idea how it had ended up there, nor did he know why he hadn't moved it. A subtle warmth filled the air as the creature's rhythmic purring reverberated through his chest. It was oddly soothing. As Zalk absent-mindedly scratched the cat behind the ears, he muttered to himself, Is this the secret to human resilience? Caffeine and these creatures? Elsewhere on the ship, the aliens were beginning to adjust as well. They stopped running in terror when the cat batted at them or rubbed against their legs. One even dared to offer it a small treat, which it accepted with a regal flick of its tail. That alien, later dubbed the Chosen One, became the cat's favorite, receiving the honor of carrying it from room to room when it demanded to be moved. The human returned to the ship a few days later to perform routine maintenance. He found the crew oddly calm, despite the cat lounging atop a critical console. "So, how's life with your new crewmate?" the human asked with a grin. Zalk exhaled slowly. "We are learning," the human chuckled. "That's the spirit. Before you know it, you'll be pros." Zalk stared at him, still bewildered. "I do not understand how you endure such chaos." The human gave a shrug. "You don't fight the chaos, you just go with it." He gave the cat a scratch on the head. "Sometimes chaos is kinda nice." Zalk fell silent for a moment, reflecting on the sheer absurdity of the past few days. "I never thought I'd say this," he muttered, "but I think we are beginning to understand." The cat yawned and stretched lazily, then leapt down from the console and padded out of the room, tail high in the air. Zalk watched it go, and for the first time, a small smile tugged at the edges of his mouth. "Strange creatures, humans, and their pets." The human clapped him on the shoulder. "You'll get used to it, trust me." Zalk sighed, shaking his head with a mixture of amusement and resignation. "I think we already are." As the human departed the ship, coffee cup in hand, the cat claimed its spot once more on Zalk's lap, purring like a miniature engine. The captain leaned back in his chair, finally allowing himself to relax. And for the first time in his long career, Zalk realized that perhaps not all chaos was bad. In the days following the human's departure, the crew of the Glartok began adapting in ways they never imagined possible. They developed new routines, ones centered not on strict protocols, but on unpredictability. They stopped trying to anticipate the cat's actions and, instead, learned to respond with flexibility and humor. It was an alien concept for them, literally and figuratively, but somehow it worked. The crew found themselves whispering about things they had once thought ridiculous. One alien remarked, "Maybe living with uncertainty isn't as dangerous as we believed." Another responded, "Perhaps it's part of why humans are so resilient." Zalk himself began taking small, hesitant steps into this new mindset. Where he once saw potential threats, he now noticed quirks, amusing, baffling, and oddly endearing. He caught himself chuckling when the cat knocked an important document off a console, realizing the same file had just been uploaded to their system minutes earlier. Instead of reprimanding the crew, he simply picked up the document and placed it back on the table, only for the cat to knock it off again. This time, he let it stay. The crew's new reality slowly dawned on them. They were no longer just dealing with a cat. They were learning how to approach life in a new way, a way that didn't demand rigid control, but thrived on adaptability. The ship, once filled with tension and anxiety, became lighter. The aliens stopped bracing for disaster at every turn. They started to laugh more, share stories, and even experiment with humor, something that had never come naturally to them. The cat, oblivious to the emotional revolution it had inspired, continued its reign as the undisputed ruler of the ship, basking in its newfound admirers. Zalk sat in his quarters one night staring out at the stars. The hum of the engines blended with the gentle purring of the cat curled up beside him. He found it strange how much comfort such a small, insignificant creature could bring. "Chaos," he whispered to himself, "isn't just something to survive, it's something to embrace." He thought back to the human's parting words, how humans didn't fight the chaos, but lived alongside it. And for the first time, Zalk believed he might understand the secret of humanity's survival. It wasn't just their strength, their technology, or their knowledge. It was their ability to live with the unpredictable, to laugh in the face of uncertainty, and, most bafflingly, to make companions out of creatures as chaotic as themselves. The next morning, Zalk called for a full crew meeting. As the aliens gathered nervously, the cat sat regally at the center of the room, as if presiding over the meeting itself. Zalk took a deep breath and addressed his crew. "We have spent our entire lives trying to control everything, every threat, every anomaly, every unpredictable element, but perhaps we've been going about it the wrong way." The crew shifted uneasily, unsure of what he was leading to. "Maybe it's time we stop fearing the unknown," Zalk continued. "Maybe it's time we learn from the humans." There was a long silence as the crew processed his words. Then, slowly, one alien raised a hand. "So, what do we do now, Captain?" Zalk glanced at the cat, which flicked its tail lazily, completely indifferent to the gravity of the moment. He smiled. "We improvise." The crew exchanged hesitant glances. And then, for the first time, they smiled too. It wasn't the forced, awkward grin of aliens trying to imitate humans. It was genuine. As the meeting concluded, the cat meowed loudly, demanding attention. One alien leaned down to scratch it behind the ears, earning a satisfied purr in response. Zalk watched the scene unfold, feeling a strange sense of peace. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were evolving, adapting, learning to live not in fear of the unknown, but in partnership with it. And as the ship sailed through the vast, unpredictable cosmos, the crew knew one thing for certain. They would be ready for whatever came next. Because if they could survive a cat, they could survive anything. In the weeks that followed, the Glartok crew fully embraced their new reality. Protocols became guidelines, meetings included bursts of humor, and the cat was officially recognized as part of the crew, listed on the ship's manifest as Ambassador of Chaos. No one knew whether this was a joke or an official designation, but no one questioned it either. Captain Zalk, once known for his rigid adherence to procedures, surprised everyone by becoming one of the cat's most loyal attendants. The cat had a knack for curling up on his lap during the most critical system diagnostics, leaving Zalk with no choice but to work around it. Somehow, despite the challenges, things ran more smoothly than ever. One day, a message arrived from the Galactic Council, demanding a full report on the humans' activities. Zalk sighed deeply, knowing that no bureaucratic form would capture the true nature of what they had learned. Still, he tried his best. Report summary. The humans are not dangerous in the ways we expected. Their strength lies not in power or technology, but in their capacity to thrive in chaos. They demonstrate an inexplicable resilience by embracing unpredictability, and their willingness to live alongside volatile creatures, both animal and human, defies logical understanding. We recommend caution when dealing with humans, not due to their hostility, but due to the sheer unpredictability they embody. To put it simply, they do not follow the rules of survival. They rewrite them. Zalk sent the report with a mix of exhaustion and quiet amusement. No doubt the council would be left as confused as the crew had been, but that wasn't his problem anymore. Not long after, a new message came through, this time from the human maintenance team stationed nearby. "Hey, Captain," the message read. "We heard about your new crew member. Thought we'd drop by with a gift. It'll make things easier." A few hours later, the docking bay doors slid open, and Zalk stood waiting as two human engineers wheeled in a large, curious object. The leader of the human team grinned. "Meet your ship's new best friend, an automatic cat feeder. Trust us, this thing will save your life." The crew gathered around the strange contraption as the humans demonstrated how it worked. The machine dispensed small portions of food at regular intervals, preventing the cat from demanding snacks every 5 minutes. The aliens stared in awe, as if they were witnessing a miracle of engineering. "And here," the human added, pulling a small red dot projector from his pocket, "is a laser pointer. If you need a break, just point this anywhere. The cat'll chase it for hours." Zalk took the laser pointer gingerly, as if holding some ancient sacred artifact. "And this controls the cat?" "Not exactly," the human replied with a grin, "but it'll keep it busy." The humans left soon after, leaving the aliens to marvel at the strange devices. Zalk turned the laser pointer over in his hand, feeling both bewildered and strangely grateful. He aimed it at the floor and pressed the button. A small red dot appeared, and in an instant, the cat pounced on it, sliding across the deck in pursuit. The crew gasped in unison. "It works," one whispered in awe. Zalk watched the cat chase the dot with an expression of quiet satisfaction. For the first time in weeks, he felt truly in control, or at least as close to control as one could get when dealing with a cat. He turned to his crew with a rare smile. "Gentlemen, I believe we have finally achieved peace." The ship drifted quietly through space, the hum of the engines accompanied by the occasional patter of paws and the soft whir of the automatic feeder. The cat was content, the crew was at ease, And for once, Captain Zalk allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things would be all right. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Zalk leaned back in his chair and let out a long, contented sigh. And somewhere deep within the quiet corners of his mind, he knew, if they could master the chaos of a cat, they were ready for anything the galaxy could throw their way, even humans. The weeks rolled into months, and life aboard the Glartok fell into a strange but comfortable rhythm. The cat continued its reign over the ship, though now with fewer disruptions thanks to the automatic feeder and laser pointer. The crew, once rigid and fearful, had transformed, embracing improvisation and humor as part of their daily operations. In some ways, the cat had done more to prepare them for deep space missions than any of their official training ever could. One day, a new transmission arrived from the Galactic Council, summoning Captain Zalk and his crew to a high-level conference. The message was brief and cryptic, but the Council's tone was clear. Their findings on humans were of utmost importance. As the Glartok approached the Council's headquarters, Zalk gathered his crew for a final briefing. This meeting will determine how the Council deals with humans moving forward. They expect a detailed report on our experiences. Be prepared to answer questions. The cat, lounging lazily atop the briefing console, flicked its tail in disinterest. Zalk sighed. And whatever happens, keep this one out of sight. The crew nodded solemnly. Everyone remembered the chaos that erupted the last time the cat wandered freely through an alien diplomatic station, sending dignitaries scrambling and triggering half a dozen emergency protocols. The ship docked at the Council station, and Zalk led his team into the Grand Chamber, where representatives from dozens of species awaited. The air buzzed with tension. Every eye turned toward Zalk as he took his place at the podium. A stern counselor leaned forward. Captain Zalk, your report on the humans has raised concerns. Your claim that humans thrive in chaos. Can you elaborate? Zalk clasped his hands behind his back, taking a deep breath. Yes, counselor. Humans have an extraordinary ability to adapt to unpredictable situations. They don't rely on order or strict protocols as we do. Instead, they embrace uncertainty, finding humor, improvisation, and creativity even in moments of crisis. The counselor's eyes narrowed. And you believe this makes them dangerous? Not in the way we initially thought, Zalk replied. Their strength lies not in hostility, but in their capacity to coexist with the unpredictable. Their greatest skill is not domination, but adaptation. Another counselor leaned in. Your report also mentioned pets, specifically a creature called a cat. What relevance does this have? Zalk hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. The cat is a microcosm of human behavior. It embodies unpredictability, independence, and disregard for rules. And yet, humans not only coexist with it, but they thrive alongside it. They have mastered the art of living with chaos, rather than resisting it. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives processed this. Then, a murmur spread through the room, whispers of confusion, concern, and perhaps a hint of admiration. Just as Zalk thought the discussion was wrapping up, a soft meow echoed through the chamber. He froze, his heart sinking. The cat had escaped. All eyes turned toward the back of the room, where the feline strolled leisurely down the aisle, its tail held high. Gasps filled the chamber as delegates recoiled in alarm, unsure whether they were witnessing a diplomatic disaster or some strange human ritual. Zalk scrambled to intercept the cat, but it was too late. The feline hopped gracefully onto the central podium and curled up atop the counselor's datapad, purring contentedly. The room plunged into stunned silence. The counselor stared down at the cat, utterly bewildered. "This is the creature you speak of?" "Yes," Zalk muttered under his breath, resigned to his fate. "And humans? So invite this into their homes?" the counselor asked, disbelief etched across his features. Zalk could only nod. "They do, willingly." A long pause followed. Then, slowly, the counselor reached out a tentative hand and scratched the cat behind the ears. The feline responded with a deep, satisfied purr. The counselor blinked in astonishment. "It likes me." Zalk managed a tired smile. "Congratulations, counselor. You've been chosen." The chamber erupted in nervous laughter. Delegates who moments ago were panicking now leaned forward in curiosity, some daring to approach the cat and offer it tentative pats. The tension that had gripped the room melted away, replaced by an unexpected sense of camaraderie. Zalk watched in amazement as the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered around the cat, bonding over this small, unpredictable creature. It was absurd, surreal, and somehow it made perfect sense. As the council meeting dissolved into informal chatter, Zalk leaned back and let out a long, contented sigh. The cat, once again, had accomplished what no amount of diplomacy or negotiation could. The counselor turned to Zalk, his expression one of bemused admiration. "Captain, your report has been most enlightening. It seems we have much to learn from humans." Zalk chuckled softly. "Don't we all?" As the cat stretched luxuriously and batted at the counselor's datapad, Zalk knew one thing for certain. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't just their adaptability. It was their ability to turn chaos into connection, to find companionship in the most unlikely places, and to teach others, alien or otherwise, that sometimes the best way to survive is simply to embrace the mess. And as the cat settled down for a nap in the heart of the galaxy's most powerful chamber, Zalk allowed himself one final thought. If humans could conquer the unpredictable with nothing more than coffee, duct tape, and a cat, then perhaps the galaxy wasn't as dangerous as they once feared. Perhaps with a little improvisation they would all be just fine. With the council session unofficially concluded, the delegates dispersed, each one still marveling at the simplicity and power of humanity's approach to the unpredictable. Captain Zalk escorted his crew back toward the docking bay, the cat following along at its own leisurely pace, completely indifferent to the monumental political meeting it had just derailed. As they entered the ship, Zalk paused at the entrance, casting one last glance over his shoulder toward the council chamber, where delegates were still buzzing with conversation, many holding private debates about introducing pets into their own species' culture. The absurdity of it all made Zalk chuckle to himself. Humans had not only survived chaos, they had made it contagious. Back on the Glartok, the cat immediately resumed its usual routine, leaping onto control panels, knocking over equipment, and demanding attention at the most inconvenient times. But something had changed. This time, the crew no longer panicked. They responded with amused resignation, like old friends settling into familiar habits. One of the younger crew members scratched the cat's head as it sprawled across the captain's chair. "I think I finally understand, Captain. It's not about control at all, is it?" Zalk smiled, settling into a console seat beside them. "No, it's about adaptation. The humans have taught us that not every situation needs a solution. Some things just are." The crew fell into comfortable silence as the ship's engines hummed to life, preparing for their next journey. As the stars outside stretched into infinity, the cat nestled into the captain's lap once again, purring contentedly. With the automatic feeder stocked, the laser pointer on standby, and the crew finally at peace with unpredictability, the Glartok sailed effortlessly through the cosmos, ready for anything. And, perhaps most importantly, Zalk knew that whatever came next, they would meet it not with fear, but with humor and ingenuity. Because if they could navigate the chaos of a cat, surviving the unknown was just another day at work. The ship's comm panel beeped, an incoming message from the humans. Zalk activated it with a knowing smile. "Hey, Captain," the familiar voice crackled through the comms. "Just checking in. How's the little troublemaker doing?" Zalk glanced down at the cat, which had somehow managed to lock his navigation panel with a single paw press. He gave a weary laugh. "Still causing trouble," he replied. "But we're learning." The human chuckled on the other end. "Good. If you ever need a break, just send it back our way." Zalk shook his head, smiling. "I think we'll keep it, thank you. It's grown on us." "Welcome to the club, Captain. Oh, and one last thing. Ever thought about getting a second cat? You know, to keep the first one entertained?" Zalk's expression froze in horror. The transmission cut off with a cheerful beep, leaving Zalk staring at the empty comm screen in stunned silence. A second cat? No, absolutely not. One was already more than enough. He looked down at the feline, who was now contentedly chewing on a communication wire. With a sigh of reluctant amusement, Zalk leaned back in his chair and muttered, "Humans really are insane." And as the ship glided deeper into the unknown, Captain Zalk knew that no matter what the galaxy threw their way, they would be ready. After all, chaos was no longer the enemy, it was just another part of life. And with a cat on board, life was never going to be boring again. Months later, the Glartok sailed smoothly through deep space, its crew fully embracing their new reality. They no longer feared the chaos the cat brought into their lives. They welcomed it. What had started as a dreaded mission with an unpredictable predator aboard had evolved into something entirely different. The crew had changed. They were lighter, more flexible, and, though they would never admit it, happier. Captain Zalk sat in his quarters reviewing the latest reports. His once meticulously organized workspace was now peppered with paw prints and half-chewed data cables. Yet, despite the disorder, everything seemed to run more efficiently than ever. The crew, now bonded by their shared experience, functioned as a well-oiled, albeit duct-taped machine. A soft beep interrupted his thoughts, an official message from the Galactic Council. Zalk opened it cautiously, expecting bureaucratic nonsense, but the message made him raise an eyebrow. Council directive: all diplomatic vessels to adopt human coexistence strategies. Mandatory review of Earth domestic companion integration programs underway. Attached was an advisory, warning that all future diplomatic teams should study human pet behavior as a prerequisite for working alongside humans. Zalk chuckled to himself. They're actually doing it.